Hey, how's it going everyone? Shunmoki here. Today we're taking a look at Osiris in SMITE. Osiris is a warrior who is able to flex into either the jungle role or the solo lane role, the better of which completely depending on the current meta. That being said though, Osiris is a solid choice for both roles. Osiris focuses on poking and out-trading his opponents in extended scuffles with a slew of slows while increasing his own movement speed, backed up with multiple ways to reduce his overall damage taken with damage mitigation. Osiris requires you to be aggressive, and with so many moving parts, get it? It's easy to write him off as a weak character unless you know the ins and outs of the character. One of the most important of which is his passive. Osiris loses a body fragment every time he successfully casts an ability, regardless of whether or not the ability hits anything. Each time a fragment is lost, Osiris gains 2% physical damage mitigation and 1% magical mitigation. This stacks up to 8 times, meaning he gains a total of 16% physical damage mitigation and 8% magical mitigation. Once at maximum stacks, Osiris will become visibly translucent, making it easy to understand when you are at maximum stacks. While in this translucent state, Osiris is able to walk through all player-made structures, and can use his basic attacks free from the normal basic attack movement speed penalty, meaning that Osiris is not slowed down when he uses auto attacks in this form. Osiris can remain in this state for an unlimited amount of time. The only way to end this form, and revert to 0 passive stacks, is by successfully basic attacking 6 times. Or of course by dying, which is no fun. Playing around this passive is paramount to utilizing Osiris correctly, ensuring that you're in or near maximum passive stacks prior to engaging in a fight, as well as not wasting any of your translucent state by, for instance, auto-attacking random minions. Since your mitigations are so high, you can typically walk up to most lane opponents and they have to show you some measure of respect, as if they venture too close, you can full combo them with minimum risk to yourself, all while utilizing Osiris' decent poke game with his first and second ability. Speaking of which, let's get to them. In his first ability, Osiris throws a sickle in a narrow, straight line, stopping on and slowing on the first enemy hit. This ability is a skill-based poke and rushdown tool with decent damage and a low cooldown to boot. Since the cooldown is so low, what you can do as Osiris is level this ability first and spam it while in base, allowing you to have full passive by the time you reach your blue buff and start the match. It's a great tool that, when used in conjunction with this 2, makes Osiris extremely difficult to deal with when he's equal or ahead in golden XP. Osiris' 2 is a medium-sized damaging AoE with a decent range and relatively high damage. When this ability hits an enemy, Osiris gains 20% movement speed. Then, if the enemy has Osiris' sickle still in them from his first ability is increased to a 40% slow for 3 seconds. It may seem obligatory then to always go for Osiris' 1 first, and then his 2 in order to pull off this combo. However, sometimes getting a confirmed 2 on a target and then utilizing that movement speed gives you a chance to ensure a successful hit on your 1, and is much more effective. Using these abilities in either fashion, though, easily sets up Osiris for his third ability. Osiris' third ability allows him to tether himself to all enemy gods within a 35 unit radius of himself. Gods who are tethered deal up to 35% reduced damage to Osiris at max ability level, starting at 15% at level 1. Gods remain tethered to Osiris for 4 seconds, or if they move too far away from Osiris' current location. If the tethered god remains tethered for the full duration, they are stunned for 1.4 seconds. Remember when I had mentioned that you have to be aggressive on Osiris? Well, this is one of the biggest reasons why. Given that the damage reduction stacks with his already high mitigations from his passive, it's imperative that you make full use out of the tether duration, while also not allowing yourself to overextend if the enemy may be baiting you with maybe a CC Moon ultimate or a movement ability just before the tether completes and the stun goes off. If they do though, it might be a good time for you to use your ultimate. Osiris leaps forward, entering his full passive form, and creates a medium-sized AoE at his landing location, rooting, heavily damaging, and disabling all healing from any god's hit. This ability is absolutely fantastic for Osiris, and you should never hesitate to use it, again going back to the aggression I mentioned earlier. It's easy to see this as Osiris' only real way to get out of bad situations, and sometimes it is, but it's also his absolute best way to win trades, as well as follow enemies who have just used their movement abilities, and more often than not, it's your best way into a teamfight. Your usage of Osiris' ultimate is more a test of your own situational awareness and understanding of the respective character's damage, rather than a show of mechanical skill with the character. Lastly, we should touch on Osiris' basic attack chain. Getting a god's basic attack timings down is a good skill to have, but it's absolutely paramount when learning Osiris. In Osiris' basic attack chain, he basic attacks twice in quick succession, pauses for a moment, then basic attacks twice again, this time in an AoE. The short pause between the phases of his basic attacks is actually a downside to the character when going for a trade, so we need to try to avoid this part of the chain if we can. To do this, you want to use the first 2 basic attacks, then cast your first or third ability. Since the cast time is so low, and the basic attack so fast, you can easily get 6 basic attacks out in quick succession. His 2 resets the chain as well, of course, but since the cast time is so long, it's typically not viable, so save that damage for if they get stunned by the 3 or use a movement ability to get some distance on you. We can, however, use the slower AoE basic attacks to our advantage too. Since the pause is so long between phases, you can actually just use your first 2 basic attacks on nothing, then walk up to the melee minions and auto-attack them for some lane pressure without wasting time using the first 2 basics on something that's maybe too close to the opponent. I don't recommend this into every god for obvious reasons, especially if they have potent lane clear, but for the ones where they actively want to try and take trades with you, I'd recommend it. For ability leveling, it's a bit up in the air. Some prefer leveling the 1 first, and to be fair, in certain matchups, it can be better. But typically, I prefer leveling the 2 up first, then the 1, then the 3, and then leveling the ultimate whenever I can for that sweet, sweet damage. I've been sprinkling in the general combos with Osiris throughout this video, but here's a few of the combos broken down at their normal speed that you want to be performing them with. And that about wraps it up for my guide on Osiris. Let me know if you have any questions or if you think I missed anything in the comments. Thanks for watching.